You step onto a scale. A small, glowing number blinks back at you from the digital screen. Your heart drops slightly as you feel a familiar, heavy wave of modern guilt. You spent your morning resisting the pastries in the break room, tracking your macronutrients on a sleek smartphone app, and forcing your exhausted limbs onto a mechanical treadmill for 45 minutes. Yet, your clothes still feel tight. Your body seems to actively fight against your deepest desires to stay lean, hoarding every spare calorie like a precious treasure. Why is it so incredibly easy for you to gain weight, and so agonizingly brutal to lose it? Modern society has been taught to believe that obesity and metabolic dysfunction are modern moral failings. Modern humans tell themselves that their ancestors were thin simply because they were perpetually starving, dragging their emaciated bodies through a brutal, unforgiving wilderness. But archaeological science has shattered this comfortable illusion. In 1963, anthropologist Richard Lee embedded himself with the Jew/Hoansi, a community of traditional hunter-gatherers living in the harsh, arid expanse of the Kalahari Desert. What he discovered completely upended the scientific world. These people did not live on the edge of starvation. They were not constantly hunting with desperate, empty bellies. In fact, Lee meticulously documented that an average adult secured more than enough daily calories while working only about 12 to 15 hours per week. They had abundant leisure time, exquisite cardiovascular health, and virtually zero instances of the chronic metabolic diseases that plague the modern world. They were lean, strong, and metabolically vibrant without a single gym membership, calorie tracking app, or restrictive diet trend. How did modern ancestors maintain effortless metabolic balance for hundreds of thousands of years while you wage an endless, losing war against your own waistlines? To understand this paradigm shift, you have to look closely at a fundamental biological concept called metabolic adaptation. In the early 2010s, evolutionary anthropologist Herman Pontzer traveled to Tanzania to study the Hadza, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer tribes on Earth. The Hadza walk miles every single day, tracking game across the rugged savanna, digging for deep tubers, and climbing towering baobab trees to harvest wild honey. Pontzer expected to find that these incredibly active humans burned vastly more calories than a sedentary office worker sitting in a climate-controlled room. The results of his study were deeply shocking. Using the doubly labeled water method, the absolute gold standard for measuring metabolic rate, Pontzer discovered that the highly active Hadza burned roughly the exact same number of total daily calories as a typical, inactive Western adult. Your body has a fixed energy budget. When you exert yourself heavily through physical labor, your brain subconsciously dampens other internal biological processes, like inflammation and stress responses, to keep your total daily energy expenditure locked within a strict, predictable range. Ancient humans did not stay lean because they burned thousands of extra calories on the hunt. They stayed lean because their environment perfectly regulated their energy intake, keeping their bodies in complete harmony with their evolutionary programming. The true secret of the prehistoric body lies hidden within the structural molecules of the food your ancestors gathered. When archaeologists excavated the ancient hunter-gatherer site of Ain Malaha in the Levant, they recovered thousands of tiny, charred remnants of wild plant foods, dating back over 12,000 years. These ancient meals were structurally complex, packed with dense fibrous matrices, and incredibly low in caloric density. When you consume a wild tuber or a handful of fibrous uncultivated berries, your digestive system has to work immensely hard to extract the energy locked inside. This process slowly releases glucose into your bloodstream over the course of several hours, keeping your insulin levels perfectly stable. Compare that to the modern industrial food landscape, where engineers have deliberately stripped away fiber, water, and structural integrity to create ultra-processed foods. These modern items bypass your body's natural satiety signals entirely, spiking your blood sugar instantly and forcing your pancreas to pump out massive waves of insulin. Insulin is a powerful storage hormone. When it remains chronically elevated in your bloodstream, it slams the doors to your fat stores completely shut, locking your energy away and signaling your brain that you are starving, even as your body fat increases. Your ancestors lived in a world dictated by seasonal abundance and absolute scarcity. This environmental pressure shaped a powerful biological mechanism known as the thrifty gene hypothesis, a concept first proposed by geneticist James V. Neal in 1962. For 99% of human history, genes that allowed your body to efficiently convert spare carbohydrates into body fat were an extraordinary evolutionary advantage. Fat was not an aesthetic insecurity, it was life insurance. A thick layer of subcutaneous fat was the only thing standing between an ice age hunter and a cold, quiet death during a prolonged winter famine. Your brain evolved a complex hormonal signaling pathway centered around leptin, a hormone produced by your fat cells that communicates directly with your hypothalamus to regulate long-term energy balance. When ancient humans grew lean during a lean season, their leptin levels dropped, triggering an intense, primal drive to forage and feast. When they successfully stored fat during a season of abundance, their rising leptin levels naturally curbed their appetite, preventing them from overeating. But in the modern world, the winter never arrives. The famine has been completely eradicated, replaced by an unbroken, eternal summer of hyper-palatable, calorie-dense foods available at any hour of the day or night. Your ancient leptin signaling pathway has been utterly overwhelmed by this constant nutritional deluge, leading to a state called leptin resistance, where your brain can no longer hear the signal that you have stored more than enough energy. The evolutionary mismatch deepens when you examine the profound relationship between human body fat and the sheer, energetic demands of the human brain. Your brain is a metabolic monster, consuming roughly 20% of your total daily energy despite accounting for only 2% of your body mass. Anthropologists believe that as early humans evolved larger, complex brains, modern humans had to develop an exceptionally high capacity to store body fat compared to other primates. A wild chimpanzee carries a remarkably low body fat percentage, rarely exceeding 5%, because its smaller brain requires far less emergency energy insurance. Humans are biologically wired to be the fattest primates on Earth, just to keep our massive brains protected from sudden energy dips. The human biology is intrinsically designed to seek out fat and sugar. Modern survival depended on feeding that greedy, complex organ upstairs. Your intense cravings for rich, calorie-dense foods are not a sign of weak willpower or a broken character. They are the beautiful, historic whispers of a survival strategy that kept your ancestors alive through dozens of brutal genetic bottlenecks. Look down at the soft curves of your body with a newfound sense of reverence rather than resentment. You are carrying the precise genetic armor that allowed your bloodline to endure through centuries of harsh winters, devastating droughts, and terrifying glacial maximums. Your body is not broken. It is simply reacting with perfect, ancient logic to a deeply artificial modern matrix. You live trapped inside an industrial environment that weaponizes your own evolutionary survival mechanisms against you, transforming your life-saving fat storage systems into a source of chronic illness. The tragedy of the modern world is that modern humans have created a society where their greatest evolutionary strength has become their greatest biological curse. You step off the scale, look into the mirror, and realize that you are an ancient survival machine trying to navigate an unsurvivable landscape of endless abundance. The glowing numbers on your digital screen do not define your worth. They merely measure the profound depth of the mismatch between the prehistoric world you were built for and the modern reality you are forced to live in. You step onto a scale,